Hello, I'm Shereen, founder and managing director of HR Rewired, and we're a HR consultancy that focuses exclusively on anti-racism and advancing racial equity. Now, by way of intro, we have unlocked over 50,000 global conversations about race, and with insights gleaned from reviewing over 1,000 Black Lives Matter statements and anti-racism commitments, we are uniquely placed to help clients both here and in the US begin their anti-racism journey. And we recognise that anti-racism is distinct to diversity and inclusion. Now, what I want to talk about in this video is I want to share our maturity model that we developed to help our clients make an informed decision about where they need to start in their anti-racism journey. But more importantly, what does great look like according to the impact that they want to have? So there are 4 levels. Level 1 is for organisations who take a compliance approach to this. So there will be very little mention about race or racism. And if there is, it is driven by policy statements. It will be HR policies and procedures, and organisations here will take a risk management approach. And they will do what I call the annual practices. So there will be an annual engagement survey, which there will be some actions that fall off the back of that. There may be annual unconscious bias training, possibly annual diversity and inclusion training. But these are tick box exercises, and I say that because they aren't weaved into the culture of the organisation. Now, level 2 is where there is an intent to be inclusive. So here the organisation does readily recognise the importance of inclusion, but the language is still very generic. There is still discomfort in talking about race, and the inclusion initiatives are driven and owned by HR. Here you may find some reference to race, but it will be in what I call very generic language. So Black people may be grouped together as BAME or ethnic minorities, and there will be much debate or no debate about whether or not it's worth putting in a specific action plan to address the issues that only affect your Black colleagues. Level 3 is where there is strategic focus and specific commitment. So here, not only do the board readily embrace the importance of inclusion, but they're also recognising the importance of addressing racism and racial discrimination. They will be specific in their language. They will have an action plan which specifically addresses racial equity, and they will take a proactive approach to not only communicating what they're doing, but also seeking feedback. So rather than relying on annual loops, as I talked about before, they will have a constant flow of information going out and information coming back into the board. So it will be a top-down and bottom-up approach. Now, level 4 is where we get into public and private accountability. So an organisation here will have the same traits as a level 3 organisation. So the board are bought in, they own it at this level. You know, the board are on the hook for this, but they also positively influence their supply chain. So here they will apply what I call positive pressure, looking to ensure that any partners and suppliers are also bought into taking their own steps to advance racial equity. And they will use that to determine who can be a supplier and who possibly needs to do more work. So just as a recap, the 4 levels of our maturity model is level 1 is where there is a compliance focus. Level 2 is where there is an intent to be inclusive. Level 3 is where there is strategic focus and specific commitment. And level 4 is where there is public and private accountability. Now, before I go, I just want to leave you with my last words of wisdom, if you like. You know, we at HR Rewired are proponents of you cannot fix what you don't understand, and you cannot solve what you don't talk about. So as well as urging you to do as much as you can to push past that discomfort in talking about race, and maybe recognizing that you may have a personal discomfort that stops you from leaning into this conversation in the way that's needed to propel your organisation on its journey. What I will say is more often than not, we are still seeing that there is some confusion about what racism is and what it isn't. And the danger of not understanding that is that you will waste time, money, energy, and resources putting in interventions that are never going to make a difference, which not only impacts on your credibility, it can also lead to making tokenistic decisions, which therefore to the outside world looks performative. But more importantly, you can actually perpetuate more harm for your Black colleagues. Anti-racism is about the actions of dismantling racism. Advancing racial equity is taking the specific steps to level the playing field for your Black colleagues. Now, these two things will form part of your broader DEI strategy, but it is a mistake for you to use diversity, inclusion, and belonging as a euphemism, as a catch-all phrase for anti-racism and racial equity. So I think I've said everything I need to say for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you found it helpful.